This weekend I've planted our seedlings in the ground. I've planted things a little bit differently this year in my raised garden bed. I'm going for a lot of diversity. So what I'm trying is the pumpkins as a bit of an understory. And then I have my capsicums, tomatoes and nasturtiums all kind of interplanted together. And the idea is to create a lot of diversity in this garden. Now you're probably wondering, why do I have random gardening equipment and Rio bar over the top of this bed? And that is because my dog is being a bit cheeky lately and has decided that jumping up into this garden bed is an exciting thing to do. So I'm just trying to protect the plants until they've got a bit of growth on them. Now I couldn't plant out everywhere just yet. This here is the remnants of my winter garden, where because we're having quite a cool spring this year, the snow peas are still holding on. In fact, they are producing absolutely amazingly at the moment, and we are getting heaps of snow peas, and they are absolutely delicious. Continuing on, we get to the next bed that I have planted this season. And this one here, I have some flowers around the edging. I also have flowers in the middle. Here we've got some peonies and dahlias planted in here, and I think that's going to look really pretty in the middle of my edibles. Along this side here, we have a bunch of my capsicum plants. At least I think they were capsicum plants. I must admit, I was a little bad with my labelling in the greenhouse this year. So they also might be chilies, so that might be a bit of a surprise. Next, I have my cucumbers, and they are running along the side of the bed here. And the plan is to actually run them out along the edge of this pathway. Around my flowers in the middle, I've planted a ring of onions. And the idea is the onions should provide a bit of a nice aesthetic look around the flowers, as well as being something that we can harvest and eat. This little patch of coriander I actually planted a couple of weekends ago, but it has been pretty cold and miserable lately, so it's taking a while to kick off, and I'm really hoping it starts to grow and start looking a little bit healthier soon. In this next area of the bed, I've planted my eggplants. So these I also started in the greenhouse, and they are still quite small, so I'm hoping with some upcoming wet weather that we're about to have that I don't have any issues with them outside in the cold weather. Next we have a flower that is popping up, and this one is a sunflower. Now hopefully the bugs don't take too much more of this one here. But this one here has just popped up off some seed that I had, and I think it's the only one that's popped up, unfortunately. If it does take off, it'll look quite nice in this corner of the garden though. Now these next three plants are going to be another surprise. And that is again because of my very poor labelling in the greenhouse. I think they may be cucumbers. I did have some Lebanese cucumbers and apple cucumbers in there, but I can't quite remember. They also might be pumpkins. They might be zucchini. We shall find out. And we'll also find out what this one here is, which has just popped up in the garden. And sometimes I find some of these things that just kind of grow in the garden naturally from the seed that's fallen from plants from the previous years. Sometimes they're some of the best plants I grow, so I'm just going to let that go and see what happens. Moving along, I have my celery, and this celery is actually from last season, and it's well and truly going to seed, and I'm doing a bit of an experiment with this. I'd kind of heard that if you cut it down, it will start to regrow. I'm seeing what happens. I cut it off now a couple of weeks ago. It's not doing an awful lot since then. A lot of these smaller pieces of celery were actually on it at that time when I cut it back, which is why I had some hope, but let's see how that goes. When I was cutting the celery down, I decided to leave a couple of plants with the celery still growing, with the idea that I can let this turn to seed, and once this has turned to seed, I'll be able to collect the seeds, and that will become my next lot of seed for planting. Now I'm just going to move past my Mr. Stacky, which is looking really pretty at the moment, with some Violias with a really nice colour in there in this pot, as well as some other flowers. But moving around here to this area of the bed, I've got a whole bunch of unusual things popping up that are not what I planted. So I planted some carrots, and that's what this plant is. But that's not what these plants are. So I've got a few plants that are just kind of popping up of their own accord. And I did have some beetroots in here, as well as some silver beets. So I'm suspecting it's probably going to be one of those. I'm looking at some of these plants over here that are a bit more advanced. I'm thinking perhaps silver beet. I've also got some flowers that are popping up on their own. I had some marigolds here as well. And this is a little marigold plant that's popping up by itself. And this is just from seed that dropped from the plant last year. Next, we have some spring onions, and it looks like this one here has got a bit of a visitor at the moment. These spring onions were from last season, and I'm letting these ones go again so that I can collect some seed off of them. And some of these I think are starting to get close. They probably still need a little bit more time. This silver beet is also from last season, and once again I'm letting that go to flower, and that way I can collect the seeds off of it once that does go to flower. Still got a little bit of a while to go yet before it does. But what is going to seed at the moment, or flowering at the moment and soon going to seed, is this kale, which looks absolutely beautiful in the garden at the moment. The bees are loving it. It looks pretty. And it's going to give me some more seed that I can then replant. I love the idea of collecting my own seed. That way it kind of keeps the cycle going and you're not always having to buy more seed. Next, in this corner of the bed, we have my beetroot. And we're going to have to get in close because it is all pretty small at the moment. So here we go. Here's some of our beetroot plants that are popping up at the moment. And a lot of these are popping up. Now with your beetroot seed, they do need to be soaked for quite a while before they will start to sprout. And I think these are one thing that has actually enjoyed a lot of this wet weather that we've been having recently. And you can see that the germination rate is really, really good. And then in the corner of the bed, we've got another beautiful Violia. My next bed also has a Violia in the corner. This one's not looking quite as happy, but it does have a few beautiful blooms on it. In fact, this whole corner of the bed's not looking too happy at the moment. So this is my parsley, and it takes quite a bit for parsley to be unhappy. But with the amount of rain we've been having lately, this corner of the bed has been inundated quite a bit, and it's just been way too waterlogged for the plants. What has been growing really well in here is my garlic. So this here is my 2022 garlic crop. I planted this back at the start of April, and as you can see, there's really thick bases on these. They're growing really, really well, and I think we're going to get quite a good crop off of these this year. And for a bit of aesthetic touch, because it's always nice to have some flowers in the garden, in the middle here, we've got another bowl of some lovely Violias. Next, we have a few more mystery plants. I think these ones were zucchinis. Again, these are a surprise because of that poor labeling in the greenhouse. So later on, when I do another video and everything is much older and hopefully we're harvesting some goodies off of these, we'll find out what these plants are. Looking forward to catching up with you during the next check-in to show you how it's all grown. Looks like I'm putting the dog to sleep. Hopefully you've enjoyed this a bit more than Sky looks to today. Catch you next time. Bye.